A man walks away from a firing squad. 10 bullets pierce his body, yet he lives. The officers leave, believing their job complete. In the silence that follows, Wes Melwies crawls toward salvation, marking one of history's most extraordinary escapes from death. From failed lethal injections to malfunctioning gallows, these stories expose the rawest moments of human survival against the ultimate punishment, the cancer that saved. February 22, 2018 marked the night Doyle Ham's disease became his salvation. Convicted of murder during a 1987 robbery, Ham developed lymphatic cancer while awaiting execution. The cruel twist of fate that ravaged his body would ultimately preserve his life. At 9:00 p.m., the execution team strapped Ham to the gurney. Their confidence quickly dissolved as they confronted the reality of his condition. Years of drug use, combined with treatments for cancer and hepatitis C, had rendered his veins nearly invisible. The team's desperation grew with each attempt. They pierced his legs, probed his ankles, and even targeted his groin. Each new puncture brought fresh pain, but no success. By 11:27 p.m., after damaging several of his organs through their attempts, the medical team faced an impossible choice. The death warrant would expire at midnight. Time. Ham's most unlikely ally forced their hand. Law enforcement, fearing lawsuits and public backlash from the botched procedure, converted his sentence to life imprisonment. Ham escaped death that night, though cancer would claim him 3 years later in 2021. A direct message to viewers: these stories of survival against impossible odds deserve to be shared. Subscribe now to join thousands of others who never miss these extraordinary chronicles of human endurance. The gallows' mysterious refusal. John Baybaum Lee's path to the gallows began in the British Royal Navy. Injury led to discharge, and desperation led to theft. Specifically, $20 worth of silverware from his master's home. The initial crime earned him a prison sentence, but his master showed mercy upon his release, offering a second chance at employment. That mercy would be short-lived.
His faith in the Lord would save him.
Later that year, authorities discovered his master dead, her throat brutally slit from side to side. The evidence against Lee was entirely circumstantial. His criminal record, his presence as the only male in the house at the time, and a cut on his arm. Without a proper trial, the justice system rushed to judgment, condemning him to death. The first hanging attempt failed when the trapdoor mysteriously jammed. The executioners, baffled, tested the mechanism without Lee standing on it. The trapdoor functioned perfectly. They positioned Lee again. Another failure. A third attempt yielded the same inexplicable result. The phenomenon so disturbed the executioner that he refused to continue, declaring the spectacle more psychological torture than justice. The seeming divine intervention earned Lee a commuted sentence. His relentless appeals eventually secured complete freedom, transforming a death sentence into an extraordinary tale of survival. The man who deceived death. The Mexican Revolution brought forth stories of brutality, but none quite like Wes Melwies' survival. Military authorities branded him a rebel and traitor. No trial preceded his punishment. No evidence supported his guilt. The firing squad awaited. 9 officers lined up with their rifles. The 10th stood ready to deliver the final shot to the head, the coup de grace. At point-blank range, 10 trained soldiers fired their weapons. The sound of gunfire echoed across the execution ground. The officers, confident in their grim task's completion, departed the scene. But death rejected Wies that day. Through supernatural endurance or sheer force of will, he maintained consciousness. As silence settled over the execution ground, Wies began his crawl towards salvation. A nearby church became his sanctuary.
I am definitely against the death penalty and the possibility of the errors that can be made.
Its occupants nursing him back to health. The bullets left their permanent mark. Wies' face bore the scars of his brush with death until his final days. Yet he lived to recount his extraordinary tale, becoming living proof that even a firing squad's precision could fail. Oxford Castle's miracle. The year 1650 brought forth one of history's most remarkable survival stories. Anne Green, a young slave, found herself entangled in a forbidden relationship with her master's grandson. The consequence, pregnancy, would set in motion a chain of events leading to a near-death experience. The pregnancy ended in miscarriage, plunging Anne into panic. Desperate to conceal the evidence, she attempted to hide the fetus in a cesspit. discovery proved swift and merciless. The authorities charged her with infanticide, sending her to Oxford Castle for execution. The hanging proceeded as planned, yet death came slowly. For 30 excruciating minutes, Anne struggled at the rope's end. The witnesses watched as her movements gradually ceased. The executioners, satisfied with their work, pronounced her dead. The next day brought an unprecedented discovery. Physicians, preparing to begin their anatomical examination, detected a faint pulse within the coffin. The medical team sprang into action, employing every technique at their disposal to nurse Anne back to life. The survival transformed her fate. Authorities, interpreting her revival as divine intervention, declared her innocent of all charges. Anne walked away from Oxford Castle a free woman, her brush with death becoming a testament to human resilience. Modern executions' fatal flaws. The 21st century brought no reprieve from execution chamber horrors. Rommel Broom's criminal path began with petty theft, escalated to car robberies, and culminated in unthinkable violence, the rape of 2 young girls and murder of 1, while attempting to attack a 3rd. The 2009 execution attempt mirrored Doyle Ham's ordeal. Medical staff jabbed needles repeatedly into Broom's body, their frustration mounting as they struck bone instead of vein. The failed procedure sparked legal battles as Broom's lawyer fought to prevent a second attempt. COVID-19 resolved the debate in 2020, claiming Broom's life before the state could try again. Willie Francis's story exposed racial injustice. In 1944 Louisiana, police arrested him in Texas for drug trafficking suspicions, claiming to find murder victim Andrew Thomas's wallet in his pocket. The trial revealed countless inconsistencies. Evidence vanished. His defense attorney mounted no defense. The electric chair awaited. The first attempted execution failed when a drunk guard's improper setup caused the chair to malfunction. Francis screamed in agony as insufficient voltage coursed through his body. Despite appeals highlighting the torture of a second attempt, authorities proceeded. 1 year later, a properly configured chair ended Francis's life. In Iran, 20-year-old Zaya Katoda faced death by stoning for alleged adultery. The brutal punishment proceeded despite village protests. After the assault of stones ceased, officials transported her seemingly lifeless body to the morgue. Medical staff discovered faint breathing, rushing her to emergency care. Public pressure mounted until authorities lifted her death sentence, granting freedom. These survival stories ignite crucial debates about capital punishment's methods and morality. From Willie Francis's tragic re-execution to Zia Katoda's triumph against brutal tradition, each case reshapes our understanding of justice and human rights. Modern execution methods promised humane death, but delivered new forms of torture. Medical advancement exposed lethal injections' flaws, while ancient methods like stoning faced increasing global condemnation. These survivors' experiences continue influencing policy reforms and human rights discussions worldwide.